My name is Maya Carter. I'm 25 years old. And for 7 years, I paid rent to live in the same bedroom where I used to hide under a blanket during thunderstorms. That sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud. But at 18, when most of my friends were choosing dorm decorations or arguing with roommates about dirty dishes, I was handing my parents $450 a month for the privilege of staying in the room with my old glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to the ceiling. I told myself it was fair. The housing market around us was brutal. My job as a web developer was only 15 minutes away. I paid my own bills, bought my own groceries when I could, helped clean the house, and saved every spare dollar for the dream. I almost never said out loud anymore, starting my own small gaming studio. So, no. I wasn't living at home because I was lazy. I was living there because I had convinced myself that being useful was the same thing as being loved. The problem was never really the rent. The problem was my older sister, Daphne Carter, 28, had been treated like sunlight since the day she was born. If she broke something, it was an accident. If I left a glass on the coffee table, it became a lecture about responsibility. Daphne dropped out of college twice, bounced between jobs, and started businesses that mostly involved selling nonsense online to people who trusted her smile. My parents called her ambitious. They called me dependable, and somehow, dependable always meant available. About a month before everything fell apart, Daphne called my parents crying. She and her husband Aaron were between homes, which turned out to mean broke, evicted, and out of options. By dinner, they were at our front door with their 2 kids, Sue and Tyler, 3 suitcases, 6 trash bags of clothes, and a tiny Pomeranian puppy named Zeus, who barked like he was being paid by the hour. My parents didn't ask me. They didn't even warn me. My mother just opened the door wide and said, "Of course you can stay here, sweetheart, as long as you need." Overnight, the house became chaos. Zoe was 7, and curious about everything. Tyler was 4, and screamed whenever anyone told him no. Zeus peed on my shoes, my backpack, and once, somehow, my bedspread. Nobody trained him. He's just a puppy. Daphne said every time I stepped in something wet, my workspace disappeared first. I worked from home 3 days a week, and I had a setup in the spare room. It wasn't fancy, but it was quiet. Then Daphne's family moved in, and suddenly, the spare room was stacked with boxes, broken toys, laundry baskets, and Aaron's gaming chair. So I worked from my bedroom, coding, while the kids pounded on my door every 5 minutes. "Can we play Roblox on your computer? Can Zeus come in? Mom says you have snacks." My bathroom time became a negotiation. The kitchen looked like a storm had passed through it. My food vanished. My charger disappeared. My headphones got sticky. Every complaint was met with the same soft, deadly sentence: "They're just kids." Maya. The strangest part was Aaron. He became weirdly tense whenever I spoke to him. One afternoon, I asked if he was done with the toaster, and Daphne appeared from the hallway, like I had whispered something sinful. "My husband's got it handled," she snapped. I blinked. I asked about toast. Aaron wouldn't look at me. That moment should have warned me. But back then, I still believed problems could be fixed with patience. Through all of this, I kept paying rent, $450 every month. Daphne, Aaron, their 2 children, and their carpet-destroying puppy paid nothing. At first, I tried to be understanding. They had kids. They were struggling. My mother kept saying, "Family stands together when life gets hard." But in our house, family had always been a word placed gently around my throat before someone pulled it tight. One evening, my mother came into my room while I was working. She had that look she got when she wanted something but planned to act wounded if I noticed. "Maya, honey," she began, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. "With Daphne and Aaron staying here, Expenses have gone up. Groceries. Utilities. Water. Everything. I kept my eyes on my laptop. Okay. We were thinking, maybe you could contribute a little more. Just until your sister gets back on her feet. I finally looked at her. You want me to pay more rent while Daphne's entire family lives here for free? Her face tightened. It's not free. They're family. There it was. The sentence that had bankrupted my childhood one sacrifice at a time. How much more, I asked. Just another $300 a month. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh. She didn't. You want me to pay $750 a month? I said slowly. To live in my childhood bedroom. In a house where I have no privacy. No workspace. And a dog that pees on my things. Maya. Don't be dramatic. I told her I'd think about it. Because I knew if I said no right away, she'd cry. Dad would get angry. And Daphne would somehow become the victim before dessert. That night at dinner, Dad backed her up. We all have to do our part, he said, cutting into his meatloaf like he was delivering a court sentence. Daphne sat beside Aaron, feeding Tyler bites from her plate. Thanks for understanding. My, she said, like I had already agreed. Aaron gave me a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. I felt something cold move through me. Then, Sunday came. My mother casually announced that Daphne and Aaron were going out Friday night for a date. And I would be watching the kids, not asked, told. I have plans. I said, what plans, Mom demanded? As if my life required approval, Daphne sighed. Come on. Maya. We haven't had one night alone in months. The kids love their aunt. Everyone stared, so I caved. Friday night. Instead of relaxing after work, I spent 4 hours chasing 2 hyperchildren and 1 possessed puppy through the house. Daphne and Aaron promised they'd be back by 10. They came home at midnight, laughing too loudly, both smelling like cocktails. Thanks. My, Daphne said, kicking off her heels. No apology. When I finally went to bed, I stepped barefoot into something warm and foul beside my dresser. This? I stood there in the dark, one hand over my mouth. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel angry. I felt empty, because suddenly I understood. They weren't asking me to help. They were training me to disappear. The morning after my unexpected babysitting adventure, I walked into my bedroom and stopped dead. Aaron was standing beside my desk, not near it, not looking at it, actually opening my drawers. For a second, I thought I was still asleep. What are you doing? I asked. He jumped so hard he nearly dropped the stack of notebooks in his hands. Oh, he said. I was looking for tape. I stared at him. Tape. The kids wanted to make a craft. There's tape in the kitchen drawer. He blinked. I couldn't find it. Before I could say anything else, Daphne suddenly appeared in the doorway. I swear, that woman had some supernatural ability to sense conflict involving her husband. Everything okay? She asked sharply. Your husband is going through my desk. Aaron immediately looked offended. I was looking for tape. In my private drawers. Daphne crossed her arms. You're making this into a much bigger deal than it is. I laughed. Actually laughed. Would you like it if I went through your bedroom? That's different. How? Neither of them answered. Instead, Daphne sighed dramatically. You always have to make everything uncomfortable. I looked from her to Aaron and felt something ugly settle in my stomach. I wasn't part of this family anymore. I was simply the person funding it. I walked out before I said something I'd regret. That night, I accidentally overheard a conversation that changed everything. I had gone downstairs for a glass of water when I heard voices in the kitchen. Daphne. My mother. Dad. I should have walked away. Instead, I stopped. Maya has always been selfish, Daphne said. I nearly choked. Selfish. I know. My mother replied softly. She just doesn't understand what you're going through. You said she'd pay the extra rent, Daphne continued. I froze. I had never agreed to that. She has plenty of savings. my father said. She'll help eventually. Then came the sentence that made my blood run cold. Honestly, Daphne said quietly, Aaron doesn't feel comfortable around her. Silence. Then my mother sighed. I know. She's always hovering around him. I couldn't breathe. Hovering around him? I barely spoke to the man. I avoided him whenever possible, and suddenly I understood why Aaron had been acting so strange. Daphne had been feeding them lies. I backed away from the kitchen before anyone saw me. I couldn't even remember getting back to my room. I just sat on my bed, staring at the wall. For the first time, moving out didn't feel impossible. It felt necessary. The next morning at breakfast, my mother smiled at me. Since you agreed to the new rent amount, we'll expect the first payment Friday. I nearly dropped my spoon. Dad cut me off. We appreciate you helping the family. I looked around the table. Nobody cared what I had actually said. They had already written my role in their story. I was the responsible daughter, the one who paid, the one who sacrificed, the one who never said no. Then my mother dropped another bomb. Oh. And Daphne and Aaron need someone to watch the kids this weekend. The whole weekend, I asked. Just from Saturday afternoon until Sunday evening. I can't. You can. My mother replied. I have work. You can work anytime. No. I can't. Daphne sighed dramatically. It's just one weekend. No. The room went quiet. Apparently, I wasn't allowed to refuse. I promised to help my friend Claire move. I lied. Dad frowned. You can't reschedule. No. Daphne shook her head. Unbelievable. I wanted to scream. Instead, I got up and left for work. A few days later, I came home and found my expensive gaming headset in pieces. Chewed. Destroyed. Zeus sat beside it, looking extremely proud of himself. I picked up the broken headset and marched downstairs. Your dog destroyed this. Daphne barely looked up from her phone. He's just a puppy. This cost $200. She shrugged. Things happen. I stared at her. You're not going to replace it. We don't have money for fancy toys. They're not toys. I use them for work. She rolled her eyes. Maybe you spend too much time playing games anyway. I almost laughed. There it was. The woman who had never held the same job for more than 6 months was lecturing me about responsibility. Then, I heard something that became my final straw. Later that night, I walked past the living room and heard my mother speaking. Maybe Maya could lend us some of her savings. Dad nodded. She has plenty put away. Daphne smiled. She doesn't need all that money. I stopped moving. My savings. The money I'd spent years building. The money meant for my dream. They were planning how to spend it. Without asking. Without shame. Without even considering that it belonged to me. I quietly returned to my room. Opened my laptop. And searched for apartments. An hour later, I sent a text to the only person I trusted. Claire. Hey. Weird question. Do you know anyone looking for a roommate? She answered almost immediately. Actually, my roommate is moving out next month. I sat up. Seriously. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe the universe wasn't completely against me. The next evening, I met Claire at her apartment. It wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms. Small kitchen. Quiet neighborhood. But when I stepped inside, I noticed something strange. Silence. No screaming. No barking. No tension. How much, I asked. $575 plus utilities. I did the math. Less than what my parents now expected from me. I looked around one more time. Then I smiled. I'll take it. On the drive home, I kept gripping the steering wheel. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt relief. For the first time in years, I could see a door opening. The problem was getting through it without my family trying to slam it shut. So I made a decision. I wouldn't tell them, not yet. I would leave quietly. I would protect my savings, protect my peace, protect myself. Operation Get Out had officially begun. The next 2 weeks felt like I was living a double life. During the day, I went to work, smiled during meetings, and pretended everything was normal. At night, I became a thief in my own house. Every morning, before leaving for work, I'd slip a few things into my car: a box of books, winter clothes, old photo albums, computer cables, extra shoes. Nothing noticeable. Nothing that would make my family suspicious. Claire had cleared some space in her apartment. And every evening, I'd drop another small load there, piece by piece. I was moving my entire life out of that house. The hardest part wasn't the packing, it was pretending I wasn't furious every time my mother hinted about bills. Pretending I didn't hear Daphne complain about how expensive children were. Pretending I hadn't heard them discussing my savings like it was community property. Meanwhile, life in the house somehow got even worse. One evening, I was carrying a small box toward my car when Zoe suddenly appeared behind me. I nearly screamed. "What are you doing?" "Aunt Maya, just taking some old things to a friend." "Can I help?" I smiled. "Not today." She looked disappointed. I felt a pang of guilt. The children weren't the problem. They had simply been born into a family where boundaries didn't exist, inside the house. My parents were becoming increasingly annoyed that I hadn't handed over the extra $300. Dad had started giving me the silent treatment. Mom kept mentioning bills whenever I walked into a room. Electricity has gotten so expensive. Groceries are killing us. It's hard, supporting so many people. Translation: pay us. Daphne somehow became even more entitled. One night, she sat on the couch eating chips while I tried to watch television. "You know," she said, "when you have a family someday, you'll understand sacrifice." I stared at her. This woman had moved into her parents' house, contributed nothing, and expected me to finance her life. I almost laughed. "Interesting advice," I said. "Coming from someone who hasn't paid rent in months?" Her face hardened. "You don't understand what we're going through." "No," I said calmly. "I understand perfectly." She glared at me. Then came the family meeting. I should have known something terrible was coming. Mom called everyone into the living room after dinner. Dad sat in his usual chair. Daphne and Aaron sat together on the couch. I stayed standing. "We need to discuss sleeping arrangements," Mom began. Immediately, my stomach dropped. "With the children getting bigger," she continued, "they need more space." I said nothing. "We think it would be best if Zoe and Tyler had their own room." Still nothing. Mom smiled. "So we thought you could move downstairs into the den." Silence. I blinked. "The den?" "Yes," she said brightly. "It would only be temporary." The den wasn't a bedroom. It was basically a storage basement with an old futon, no windows, and a washing machine that sounded like a helicopter. I looked at her, then at Dad, then at Daphne. They were serious. "You want me to give up my room? It would really help the family." Mom said, "No." The answer came out instantly. Everyone looked shocked, as if I had just slapped someone. "Maya," Dad said carefully, "no. It would only be temporary." "No." Daphne sighed loudly. "You're being selfish." I actually laughed. "You've moved your entire family into this house for free, and I'm the selfish one." Aaron crossed his arms. "The kids need space. So do I. You're one person. And I'm also the only person paying rent." The room became very quiet. Mom looked hurt. Dad looked uncomfortable. Daphne looked furious. "I can't believe you would deny your niece and nephew a proper bedroom." I folded my arms. "I can't believe you're asking me to give up the room I pay for. You don't need that much space." She snapped. "Neither do you. Maybe you and Aaron should move into the basement." Her mouth dropped open. I sighed heavily. "Maya? No," I said firmly. "I pay rent for my room. I'm not moving." Mom's eyes filled with tears. Her favorite weapon. "We're only asking because we're family." I looked around the room. That word again. Family. The word they used every time they wanted something. Never when I needed something. Always when I was expected to sacrifice. I suddenly felt very tired. "You know what's funny?" I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. "I don't think any of you would do this for me." Silence. No one answered. Because We all knew the truth. If I lost my apartment, if I lost my job, if I showed up at the door with boxes and nowhere to go, I'd be told to figure it out. I saw it on their faces. The realization hurt more than I expected. I'll say it one more time. I said, I'm not giving up my room. I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard Daphne whisper, she's always been the problem. I stopped at the stairs. For years, I had believed that if I worked harder, gave more, sacrificed more, eventually, I'd earn the same love Daphne received so effortlessly. But standing there, I finally understood something. I never had a chance. The rules had been different from the beginning. I went into my bedroom and closed the door. Then I called Claire. Can I move in early? I asked. There was a pause. Everything okay? No, I admitted. Another pause. Of course you can. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Anytime. After we hung up, I looked around my room. The posters, the bookshelf, the desk, the place where I'd spent most of my life. And for the first time, it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place I needed to escape. I started packing immediately. No more waiting. No more guilt. No more trying to earn love that had conditions attached to it. Operation Get Out had entered its final stage. By this time tomorrow, I would be gone. I left on a Saturday morning. At 5 o'clock, before sunrise, before anyone could stop me, I had packed the last of my essentials the night before my laptop. Clothes, documents, chargers, and the box containing the prototype sketches for my future gaming studio. I barely slept. Every hour, I looked at the clock and wondered if I was doing the right thing. Then I heard Zeus barking downstairs and Tyler throwing a tantrum because he couldn't find his favorite toy. Suddenly, leaving didn't feel wrong at all. It felt necessary. I quietly carried my bags to my car. Halfway through loading the last box, Zeus spotted me. The tiny dog exploded into frantic barking. Please don't do this, I whispered. He barked louder. I tossed him one of the treats I'd been carrying in my pocket for weeks. He ate it, then barked again. Traitor. I finally picked him up and gently placed him in the bathroom with another treat. Desperate times. By 6 a.m, my car was packed. I stood in my empty bedroom for a long moment. The shelves were bare, the closet nearly empty. Sunlight was beginning to creep through the curtains. This room had witnessed every version of me. The lonely child, the hardworking teenager, the daughter who spent years trying to be enough. I suddenly felt tears sting my eyes. Then, I remembered my mother asking for more money. I remembered Daphne calling me selfish. I remembered them discussing my savings as though it belonged to everyone but me. The tears disappeared. I picked up my keys and left. No note. No goodbye. No explanation. I'd already spent years explaining. Nobody had listened. Claire was still asleep when I arrived at her apartment. I sat in my car for 20 minutes. Watching the sunrise, for the first time in months, there was silence. No screaming, no barking, no arguments. I almost cried from relief. By the time Claire opened the door, my phone had already begun vibrating. Mom, Dad, Mom again, Daphne. 3 missed calls became 10. 10 became 15. Then came the messages. Where are you? Why is your room empty? Call us immediately. How could you do this? I turned my phone off. Claire helped me carry my things inside. Are you okay? She asked. I looked around the quiet apartment. I think I'm starting to be... For the first time in months, I slept peacefully, on a couch, in a living room, and it was still better than my own bedroom back home. When I woke up, I turned my phone back on. 32 messages. 8 missed calls. I sighed and called my mother. She answered immediately. Maya, where are you? I moved out. Silence. Then, you did what? I moved out. You left. Without telling us. Yes. Her voice rose. We thought something terrible had happened. We've been calling hospitals. I closed my eyes. I'm fine. Mom? How could you do this to us? There it was. Not, are you okay? Not, why did you feel you had to leave? Only, How could you do this to us? I tried talking to you, I said quietly. You never listened. This is about the rent, isn't it? This is about everything. We could have worked it out. No, I said. You wanted me to pay more. Give up my room. Babysit whenever you wanted. And hand over my savings. She began crying. Maya, your sister needs help. I know. She has children. I know. Family helps family. I laughed softly. Funny how family only seems to work one direction. Silence, I continued. I've spent 7 years helping this family. I'm done being everyone's safety net. You're abandoning us. No. Mom, I'm finally choosing myself. Then I hung up. I cried afterward. Not because I regretted leaving, because I realized she still didn't understand. Maybe she never would. A few days later, Dad called. His voice sounded tired. We need to talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. The moment I saw him, I knew something was wrong. He looked older, smaller, somehow. After a few minutes of awkward conversation, he finally said it. We're short on the mortgage this month. I stared at him. You want money? No. You want me to keep paying? We just need help temporarily. I couldn't believe it. Dad, I don't even live there anymore. It isn't about rent? Then, what is it about? Responsibility. I almost laughed. What about Daphne's responsibility? She has children. I rubbed my temples. Dad. She's had a difficult time for years. He looked away. Then he quietly said, We need $800. I stared at him. 800. More than I had paid while living there. I couldn't help it. I laughed. A sad, disbelieving laugh. No. He looked stunned. Maya, no. Your mother is worried sick. No. We might lose the house. No. He finally became angry. You're being selfish. I stood. No. I'm finally setting boundaries. Then I left. The messages became uglier after that. Daphne accused me of abandoning the family. She said Mom was having anxiety attacks. She said the kids cried because they missed me. Aaron sent a long message about how families stick together during hard times. I blocked them all. Then I discovered the truth. Through my cousin. I learned my parents weren't actually struggling. Dad had received a large bonus at work. The house wasn't in danger. The mortgage story had been a lie. The money they wanted, it was for Daphne. Again. Apparently, she and Aaron had racked up enormous debts from failed investments and gambling. I sat on my couch staring at my phone. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. Everything suddenly made sense. The extra rent, the pressure, the guilt. I had never been a daughter to them. I had been a financial plan. That night, I blocked everyone. Mom, Dad, Daphne, Aaron, every number, every social account, everything. Silence followed. Beautiful. Peaceful silence. Weeks passed. I focused on work. I started designing my game again. I slept better. I smiled more. Eventually, I even met someone at a local programming meetup. His name was Daniel. He was kind, funny, and when I told him I needed a quiet evening to work on my project, he simply smiled and said, Then let's order pizza and I'll cheer you on. No guilt, no demon, no conditions. I nearly cried. Because I finally understood what support looked like. Real support. Months later, I received a birthday card from Zoe. The front was covered in glitter. Inside, she had written, I miss you, Aunt Maya. I hope you're happy. I sat there holding that card for a long time. Then I smiled, because I was, for the first time in years. I truly was. I learned something through all of this. Boundaries aren't cruel. Walking away isn't selfish. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. I still dream about opening my own gaming studio one day. Maybe it will happen. Maybe it won't. But now, every dollar I save belongs to my future. Every choice belongs to me. And every morning, I wake up in a quiet apartment where nobody expects me to sacrifice myself for their comfort. After everything that happened, That peace feels like winning.